The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent along with Addie Rich.
Howdy.
I was going to say something. We are a podcast dedicated to giving a voice to the disability community. We do that by having those with a disability on to tell their stories and the organizations that provide programs, services, and support to the community on to share what they do. I am a polio survivor, crutch and brace user for years, and transitioned into a wheelchair user over the last 20 years. Addie?
I have cerebral palsy, which I showed up in the world with. Before, I was generally walking on my own power, but now I use a walker most of the time and headed toward a wheelchair with Doug holding my hand.
Have you taken any steps closer?
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, good.
Begrudgingly. Although, like you say, it's going to be fine, and I'm going to be so happy when I finally just accept it.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to rush you. Let me be clear. But slow but steady is good. You'll, like I tell everybody, you'll find that moment that it makes sense to you. There's plenty of time for that. Good week? Anything exciting?
Good week. Cold. It's just cold here.
Yeah.
It makes me want to stay in the house.
Yeah.
And luckily I work from home, so I don't have to go anywhere.
It sounds silly to say the same thing, but here we're in the 50s, which for us is, it'll get in the 40s. We had snow a couple of years ago here that actually lasted a day or two. It was enough that people were getting to, thank God, I got home from somewhere and, because where I was, it started to snow in Rancho Cucamonga. Yeah, and then I live farther east and I was there and it started to kind of collect, like I better get home. So I drive out in a freeway. It's getting white. Everything's covered. So I stopped.
What's happening?
I stopped in a parking lot right off the freeway and was just kind of watching it. And then I drive home and I'm a little bit farther up the mountain from there. And it's just getting thicker there. I get home and I couldn't back into my driveway.
Oh no.
It was sliding, and thank goodness the neighbors all came by and kind of shoveled it a little bit so I could get in the driveways.
They're like, oh no, Doug's stuck.
So that's our level of winterness here. But I had a good week, busy week. I just a lot of little things. Rolling Start Wheelchair Group. It hit last Friday, so did that. Possibilities was there. Jen was there that we'll talk to here in a little bit. Just a gathering of all kinds of different disabilities that just catch up on what each other's doing, and then somehow it'll break into some conversation, and we kind of get to share things that we're dealing with and help each other that way. The New Year's dinner, I think I alluded to 3 weeks ago, like a tradition that my friends, we get together on New Year's. Yeah. We'll meet at 4:30, have dinner, wrap up, go to one of our houses, have some games, and I'm home and in bed by 9, just the way I like it. So, we had lunch.
My kind of thing.
Yeah, so
Except
that was
it'd probably
good.
be 8 o'clock when I'm like, I got to be in bed. Sorry, guys.
Taco Tuesday and the Old Farts Racing Team did that. The Dogs Night Out, which are the military dog handlers. We went to the Cracker Barrel on Wednesday night. So,
what did you think of Cracker Barrel? Because Cracker Barrel's a thing back here. Yeah. So what did you think?
Well, it's been here a while, so I've been a number of times. Years ago, we'd go to something in New Mexico, and there was one there, so we'd go. It's, how do I say? I'm not into that kind of food. I don't eat that kind, fried things really a whole lot.
You don't eat like a Southerner?
No, no. So breakfast I love, but for dinner, like I had it was broccoli and cheddar cheese chicken thing,
Okay.
Which was good.
You know what? I live here and there is a Cracker Barrel, but we rarely go. It's like every 4 or 5 years, because honestly, it's like eating out Southern food, like the most caloric, saturated. I don't know. Right. If I'm going to eat Southern, I want a Southern person to cook it for me because it's so much more authentic.
Yeah. Now that it's here in the neighborhood, the novelty's worn off. It's not something that I would do all the time. Yeah, exactly. But from time to time, because in that group, there are probably 10 or so people and we rotate who's the host, and the host
Gotcha.
gets to pick. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And generally, I drive like an hour to get where most of them live, so it was my time to host. So I picked something 10 minutes from my house.
You cheater.
So that was a beauty. There's a Texas Roadhouse right next door that is awesome.
I was like, what? To know that's there, why didn't you go there?
And I will tell you, because it's like a 90-minute wait.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens is there's a center there that's 6 years old or something like that, and it's mostly restaurants. But every new restaurant that opens is like the new favorite, and everybody goes there.
Right.
So when Cracker Barrel opened a few years ago, that was the one you couldn't get into. It forever waits. So Texas Roadhouse is just like across the parking lot, and now everybody goes there. And
oh my gosh!
so you can get into
I've
Texas.
only been there one time, but wow, it was good.
Oh yeah.
The biscuits is it not the biscuits? The bread, the honey bread or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just remember I ate way too many rolls that I did not need.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't hungry.
And then you're not hungry for dinner.
I literally was
just
full.
box that up. I'll take it home.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take that part to go because I literally have stuffed myself full of rolls.
Oh, good. And then it was a dinner night out all week last week. Dinner with some of my buddies. We get together, every few weeks and same kind of thing. Whoever, it just rotates who picks. So we went to Yard House. Do you have Yard House?
We do.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I haven't been in like 7 or 8 years because it's like an hour from here. But
yeah.
I mean, I liked it when I used to go.
Yeah. I had a chili or a cheesesteak sandwich, which was really good. But what my friends had, what they picked, I'm like, I want that. That looks good.
You're like, just kidding. Can we rotate the plate?
Yeah. Oh, man. So, I don't think we've shared it here. We've talked about it. But I had an incident. It's been a couple of weeks ago now. I got my chair, and I've talked about that. And I got a power drive on it, the smart drive. And so I've only had it now for a little over 2 months. And
it's a freaking gremlin, people. It's a gremlin.
Well, yeah. I noticed a couple of times that when I wasn't touching the controller, that it would just like lurch a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that's like, did that really just do that? Or, something else happened, And then there was a couple of times like, yeah, that really did kind of take off. I'm starting to figure out something's going on here. Yeah. And then my brother that was here for Christmas, he got me a nice knife sharpener. So I sat up on the kitchen table, the dining room table actually.
Doug's got a project, people.
And I'm sharpening knives. Well, thank goodness I wasn't sharpening the knife at this moment and holding it in my hand and all that.
Yeah.
It took off and it's like just goes and it's pushing my table and chairs are flying everywhere. It's pushing the table across the room. And finally I get it to stop. So then I turn it off and get everything back together. And like, okay, dodged a bullet there. Well, then a few days later, I'm in the studio here and I'm really just about to wrap up. And this will make sense later, but I look at my phone and I got like 4% power, So I start to leave and it takes off again. Well, here I'm just right at the desk. So it's driving me forward. My hands are on top of the desk. So I can't reach under. Well, maybe I could, but in the chaos and the surprise of that moment.
Yeah.
So it pushes me, and it just keeps pushing as I am driven under the desk, and I'm going back. So I get to a tipping point, and I fall back, smack my head on the floor, and I'm laying there on my back in my wheelchair. But my feet are still on the footrest, and they're up against the bottom of the table, and they're stuck in there. I can't pull them out. So from there, I can't pull them out.
People, bad.
Yeah, bad.
Yeah.
So I'm trapped here, basically in my house.
Doug's wheelchair has revolted and taken over.
I take a moment just to kind of like make sure I'm not concussed. Gotta go through the protocol, and it seems like everything's fine, and I'm trying to relieve the pressure on my feet. And so I have a backpack on, and I'm thinking, well, if I get the backpack off, maybe that'll give me a little bit more room and I can get out of this. Well, no, it was the opposite, because the backpack was holding me up.
Right.
So as soon as I kind of wiggle around and get the backpack off the back of my chair, back comes down, the feet go up. Now they're even
Oh God.
harder to get out.
The cantilever, what is it called? Counter lever or something?
Yeah. So,
Yikes.
so I realized, okay, I only had 4% left. I got to call my neighbor because, bless his heart, he helps me out of these kind of things all the time. Not this severe, but so I call him. Juan, I'm stuck in the house. Help! I'm trapped. So I give him the code.
I call it and I can't
get up. Yes, exactly. So I have a pad, a keypad. So I give him the code, and he's trying to get in, and I'm still messing around. Well, I figure out that if I pull back on my wheels, that will bring the seat up, but brings my feet down.
Yeah.
So I just kind of slowly try to work that up, and at the same time, because I'm hanging onto the wheels. As soon as I let go of the wheels, the feet come back up. So I have to figure out somehow I get to a point where I can hold the chair long enough where I can get my feet out, and I did. So by the time they come rushing in, him and his family come, I'm now free, but I get picked up. Okay, so that's what happens. So the next day, I called the people that sold it to me and installed it and all that, and I said, "This is what happened." Kind of told them this story, and they go, "Oh, well, we'll look into that." And they called me back later that day. Now they tell me. And now in hindsight, I can't remember exact words, but they said there's a recall.
Okay.
And I'm thinking to myself, why wasn't I notified? Did I not register my unit or what? I don't know. So they give me the particulars, and they're going to come in and put a push button system in that they have for it, and they recommend that you destroy the controller for this. They've identified the problem; it's in the controller. And they're going to manufacture new ones, and they said they should be ready by mid-January.
Oh,
now, this is 2 weeks ago, and I'm thinking the chances of them getting this re-engineered and remanufactured out to us by mid-January is really, that's
slim.
Yeah, slim. So in the next few days, I start to wonder, well, why didn't anybody contact me? And now this is where maybe it's suspicion, but I'm thinking, when did the recall come out?
Right.
Did it come out 2 weeks ago and they haven't told me? They didn't tell me, or what? So
Was it already there?
Yeah. So I call the manufacturer and talk to the tech people, and I start saying, I've got the smart drive and this happened to me, and just was kind of curious when the recall came out. And the guy was acting very strangely. And, at first I was just thinking engineers sometimes.
Right, they're kind of quirky.
They don't have the best
Not to say anything, we
social
love you,
skills.
engineer.
Yes. But, it was just one word answers, and just the tone was off. And finally when I said, so, when do you think the units will be ready? And he said, Tuesday. I'm like, Tuesday? I'm like, they're ready now? I mean, like last Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, what? He said, no, you'll find out Tuesday. I'll find out on what's Tuesday. That's when we announce the recall.
Doug.
That's why he was being so cagey. Because then he says,
OMG.
How did you find out about the recall? Who told you about it? And I said, the people that I got the smart drive from. So this, not today, but a week ago, is when it was announced.
What in the world?
The plot thickens.
I mean, this sounds like there's more that needs to be done to this story, but that's just my personal opinion.
Well, they're coming to install the buttons later today.
Okay.
And
do you get to keep the crazy smart drive, or they take it with them?
I don't think the problem was with the smart drive. I think it's with the controller.
So are they gonna? Well, just because if you could take a baseball bat to it for your revenge.
I mean, I've been using it. I just turn it off when I'm not using it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, when
you make it inoperable.
Yeah. So, like, I use it to get in and out of the van, or when I was at the mall going to dinner with my friends, to go from the parking structure to the restaurant. I use it. Then when I got there, I turn it off so it's not jamming through the table.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where it's at.
Taking your friend's table,
yes.
The whole table leaves the dinner. They're like, "What's going on?"
Poltergeist. What's going on?
Right? What's wrong with Doug?
So that's the latest on that.
Karen takes the table once all the food's delivered. I don't know.
We'll see how that goes. So
interesting.
the adventure continues. I want to thank Brian Bushway, last week's guest. Fascinating. Loved every moment of that. We've had discussions since then. I don't think I've had time to share all of it with you.
I'm like, we have? Okay.
I'll kind of get you up to speed, and then we'll bring it. But just all suffice to say, we've got a bit of a future that we're planning with some more collaborations with Brian. Yeah, he's very excited.
Super interesting. I've talked about him a lot
over
the week, and encouraged my friends and family to listen to the episode, and just talked about some of the bleed over outside and how interesting it was. We all think we have different perspectives, but that conversation, if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen, because we can all take nuggets of like how we view the world, and his particular perspective on sightseeing.
If you are a person with a disability or not.
Anybody.
Yeah. He explores, ideas that are really out there. Not really out there, but because I think they were
unexpressed. Let's say unexpressed commonly, so it just makes you. It tilts your we see the world through like a certain disabled, because this is a life we know. But then when you hear from a different person with a different disability, I love like the camaraderie that we kind of have being part of a larger group. But then you realize me being the you realizes like how even short-sighted my thoughts are in some things.
Yeah. And not intentionally, it's just you're thinking about it this way. And
the joy of this podcast is that we all realize there's 6 degrees of separation between humanity, and if we listen more to different experiences, we'd be more open about life experience as a human. I think.
And I like the things he was expressing. You didn't listen to them and go, where's your tin hat, buddy? No, I mean, immediately you're thinking that makes sense. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So
he has honed his craft of explaining things in a way that makes it accessible. Yeah. So you have an aha moment instead of a like, what the heck?
Last week here on Walk and Roll Live. Check it out.
Yeah.
And this week, well, first of all, we love you, and we would love your expressions of love to us by liking and subscribing and sharing whenever you listen to Walk and Roll Live. Thank you. And coming up today, we've got an interview with Jen Larios. She's living with MS, and we're going to hear all about her journey, how she found out that that's what she was dealing with, and what's going on with her now, and how she looks at the future. So that's all coming up right after this word from Ugyard Professional Training.
At Ugyard Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Ugyard is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Ugyard Professional Training and witness the growth of your business.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories.
We gather here tonight, hearts and wheels, we shine bright. Rolling through this life, every step a brand new vibe. Voices loud and clear, stories shared without a fear. Life's a song we steer, with each turn we cheer and steer. Walk and roll live, feel the beat inside. Together we...
Thank you for listening to Walk and Roll Live. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a special guest, Jen Larios. Am I saying that right, Jen?
You are.
Good. So we start every episode or every interview by letting you kind of introduce yourself and give us just a small little idea of who you are, where you're from, and your disability status.
Sure. Jen Larios, and I have multiple sclerosis. The status is kind of like a ... because I've been diagnosed. There is no cure, but I've gone through this transformation where you can't say remission, but it's like remission.
Kind of day to day with MS, isn't it? You have good days, bad days.
Yeah, it's kind of minute by minute.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Right.
Quite the roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, that's why we wanted to have you on, to kind of share your story. And by sharing your story, other people that are experiencing what you are won't feel so all alone, and there's healing in that, I believe. So that's kind of what really the foundation of the whole show is, to tell these stories and help each other deal with these things, because as we all do, I think we can agree here that we put a brave face on day to day, but there are still challenges. I mean, I love life and wouldn't change a thing over the course of my life. Speaking for myself, but still there are day-to-day challenges. Then you add in aging, that kind of adds to it, and everybody goes through it at some point or another, if you're one of the lucky ones that makes it that far, right? So let's start with getting to know Jen a little bit, maybe pre-diagnosis. What was your life like? What were you like?
Very active. I like to call myself like a one and done kind of girl, because I want to try everything. I probably share a lot of interest with a lot of people. Because if it was axe throwing, rock climbing, go to a baseball game, go shopping at Joann's, make a blanket. I mean, I wanted to try everything all the time.
Yeah.
So I think when it came to like diagnosis time, it was like, well, people get upset like, oh, I missed out on this, I missed out on that. And I said, well, I've kind of done it all. So this is just another experience. So now it's learning how to do everything in a chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How has that impacted that side of you, though, that wants to try everything? Has it limited your ability to try things, or?
It's definitely shifted it.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the biggest hurdles has been just to get my voice heard. Because even with trying to get diagnosed, I knew when I saw the first specialist that it was multiple sclerosis.
So what led up to you going and getting things checked out? Because you did have a bit of a journey before they did come up with an actual diagnosis, but you felt like that's what it was before they put a name on it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to work for a cancer fighting nonprofit. So I would do a lot of health fairs and things like that. So I was actually at one in Corona, and the MS Society was there. So I go and do my little rounds, in between employees running back and forth. So there's a little bit of a lull, and I go around and I talk to everybody, and I want to see just if there's some way I can partner with anybody else there.
Sure.
So at this point, the only thing I'd really noticed was a weakness in my right knee. So I was kind of limping, but I wasn't sure why. I was working events, I thought I just twisted something, or, old.
Any pain associated with that, or mostly just weakness?
So for me, there's a million different symptoms you can have with this diagnosis. And it's one of the hardest ones to diagnose, just because it can look like a million different things in a million different people.
So they have to kind of eliminate things one by one. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah. And that would have been nice to know, to kind of ease the frustration of getting the diagnosis.
So my dad had MS, and he was diagnosed with ALS first, and a million other things. And so like his started with double vision, and it starts different with everybody. And his mother had MS, and his sister had MS. So we have a huge family of MS, and for everybody, it looks different, right? Like, but there was years of my dad being like, maybe it's Lyme's disease, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And then they called it ALS. And then, cause he was 38, I believe. And that was, years ago. And so they were, it was spitballing until they finally went, a specific specialist said MS.
Yeah. Yep. That's kind of how it goes. And, a big trigger for me is stress. Mm-hmm. So my health declined pretty rapidly from seeing that first specialist and him saying, it's not that. But I said at that health fair, I had walked around, I saw MS Society, I grabbed up one of their flyers and it said, these are symptoms. And I looked at it and I said, hey, I have that one. Hey, I had that happen.
Checking them off one by one.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, this is what this is it. Like,
Yeah.
And so I told them, I was like, I think I have MS. And they're like, then you should go see a neurologist. And I said, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if the medical community, if you're listening, if you could, I don't think it would take much to manage people's expectations. Like you say, if you'd have known that going in, that there's a process and it can be long, just give me a heads up on that. And then it won't be so stressful to go through that whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. So once you get diagnosed, what are the emotions?
Once diagnosed, so I had made it through, I think 6 or 7 different specialists trying to figure that out. So once I get diagnosed, it's a relief. Obviously it's not the outcome you want, here's your disease and there's no cure for it. So, just kind of live with it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But how do I fight it? Well, we don't really know. There's some medicines to help with symptoms.
Right.
Okay, great. So it's just managing.
It's literally here, take this for your memory. Here, take this for your pain. Here, take this for your, because I remember with my dad, it was handfuls of different random, you know what I mean? And it was so much earlier in the process than probably for you that he did studies and tried different things and whatever, and to be the guinea pig of will this work for people later?
Mm-hmm.
And then are there interactions between all those medications that you're taking?
Exactly. Or what quality of life? This one degrades your quality of life, but this one kind of fixes this other thing. And which cancellation policy is the best for your life?
Right. Right.
So do you experiment or do you just, that could be, I guess, troublesome, but I mean, you get all these prescribed drugs, but your body, they're just kind of throwing a blanket thing. Your body. Do you try this one a little bit more than this one? And it kind of, you're finding that sweet spot.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. I said, I kind of have trouble regulating my sleep at night. So sometimes I stay up really late sometimes. And they're like, well, there's a pill for that. Okay. So they prescribe it to me and I take the first one and I'm out the whole next day. I get up for a drink, use the restroom, and that's back to bed. Yeah. And I was like, hey, maybe that was a little too much.
Yeah, that might be too much.
That is not life functional. I do. Yeah. Exactly. You need knobs to be okay, a little bit of sleep, a lot of pain relief, a little, more balance. You need those different things.
Yeah. And see, through this journey, I have friends in the different fields and offices that I'm going to regularly. So I'm like, hey, you gave me this in a 50. Could you, the next time you fill it, give it to me in 2 25s instead? Yeah. And so, that it's kind of like playing your own doctor, figuring out what works for me.
Yeah.
And kind of just going back to my doctors and saying, hey, we're on first name basis at this point.
Yeah.
So it's hey, Susan, I tried this and the 50 was too much. So now I'm doing 25. Can you make that adjustment in my chart? So the next time we fill it, I'm able to sleep and wake up.
Yeah. It sounds like you've been lucky though, to find docs that listen to you and work with you as more than a patient who they don't remember who you actually are. So they have to go back and look at their notes. How long did that take you to find? Because I know in diagnosis process and doctors, as we've talked about in many ways here, it's difficult to find that mesh where it works. So what was that process like trying to find that place?
Also a journey, I had to report some doctors, some that cursed at me because they didn't like what I had to say. It's having worked for a nonprofit and telling people you need to be your own advocate. Mm-hmm. Once you get diagnosed, there is a mourning period of kind of woe is me, but I gave myself about 6 months of that, of just woe is me. And it was during COVID. So everyone was having that feeling at the same time. But, I had told these people, you have to be your own advocate. So, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. And okay, it's time to, girl boss now. So let's figure this out. And if I didn't like a doctor, you're not my doctor, I can tell. Then on to the next one. Like we need somebody who's going to give me the right answers. And it doesn't look like you want to help me. So I need to find one that will.
Yeah.
That's a very diplomatic way to say it, though. Like that's an honest diplomatic way to be like, okay, this is not a good fit.
Yeah.
And that's the story you hear over and over and over again. I mean, I can sit here for an hour and recite stories of people I know, not like a friend of a friend or anything. These are people I know who the doctors were treating them in a certain way. And, and it goes from cancer to all kinds of different things. And if they hadn't have been their own advocate, they wouldn't be with us today. By the time, in one case, they were telling him it was, he had a fellow that had a broken clavicle from a motorcycle accident. So he had pain in his shoulder here. And they were just saying, well, that's still healing. Everything's going to be fine. Well, by the time somebody would actually listen to him, they found a softball-sized tumor in here. He was like stage 4. And by the grace of God, he survived that. But, people had listened to him a little bit sooner. I can go back to, your own body, when it's
Right.
something different than what they're saying it is. And just listen. That's all.
Yeah. Even so, I'm actually part of a study with Stanford.
Mhm.
And even getting to that point, my doctor at the time was kind of gloating because he was about to be my new neurologist.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of gloating and like, oh yeah, I have somebody in this study at Stanford. They're doing really well. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Do you think you can refer me? Well, I don't know that you'd be a good fit. Okay, but can you refer me? And like let them decide if I'm a good fit? Because by the time I was done with my first visit up to Stanford, they're telling me, you're perfect for this.
Mm.
Right.
Take heed of that lesson, dear listeners.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I got to be
Yeah.
this. Got to be the squeaky wheel. Let them, just the people that know, decide.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
to get by the gatekeepers.
Yeah. I mean, if you know your body better than anybody else knows your body.
Yeah.
So if there's something you want to try, there's no harm in trying anything, and for me, this study made sense because there was no placebo. It's either you get the strongest form of medication that exists right now, or you're going through this bone marrow chemo procedure.
Yeah.
So as long as I was getting something, I was in. And, like I said, coming from that nonprofit background, all I want to do is help people. So if this heals me, great. If it helps others, even better.
Well, and on the other side of that, we have to caution people. You're not looking for somebody that will just go along with anything you say. They are the professional. You want a teammate, though, that you work together for the same goal. That's what you're looking for in somebody in healthcare, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because having somebody who agrees with you all the time, and I run into that a little bit too, because I have physical therapy every single day, Monday through Friday. So I have therapists that I see regularly. And if I say, oh, I'm kind of tired, I don't want to do that, and they let me not do the thing, that's hurting me in the end too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, on the other end, that could also be a downfall.
Yeah. Got to be honest with yourself, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So now, how many years have you been diagnosed?
Diagnosed 2021.
21. So
So
now,
years.
where are you now with your life? I mean, you just, everything I get from you, you're an active, person, and I'm sure there's many things that you probably have to hold back on because of your energy level and all that. So how do you balance that?
Well, I had to train myself to nap because that's not something I did before. And
Sure.
so I kind of give myself one big thing a day, and then my moderate thing, and then something domestic. I mean, I have to do something because nobody's going to clean my house for me.
Nope.
So If I'm doing dishes today, okay, well, maybe we wash them today, but we put them away tomorrow. You know, it is there's a fine line with MS because I need to do something, but I can't do nothing. Yeah. There's a fine line.
And part of that's because of your physical strength. Other part is probably mental as well.
Yeah. So there's some brain fog late at night. So yeah, part of just sleep. I mean, just normal health for normal people. So I have this diagnosis, so I need to treat it this way, but I'm also an adult, so I need to do these things. And you have pets, you have a kid, like these are all, it's just adding to the list. So being a little organized and Marie Kondoing my life has kind of not been an option. It's necessary.
Naps were my dad's favorite. Naps were like, you do not disturb dad during the nap window unless you want the wrath. You also don't worry about him because you know he's probably napping because it was like a religious strict time. So I'm sure from what you're kind of saying, like do this, do that, then I need a nap. Now it kind of makes sense when he put it. Like it was between like 1 to 2, you know, now from your perspective, it kind of makes sense to me that like do stuff in the morning when you wake up and feel okay. And then. Yeah. Now, do you work from home or you work out of the house? You know, I mean, at a job that you go to, or how does that work? How has that changed?
So I worked up until December of 2021. Okay. I tried to do remote, but you know, it's just that day-to-day, hour-to-hour part of it. Is I have to be flexible. And if my body says I go to sleep at 10 a.m., my boss isn't going to let me go to sleep at 10 a.m. when I've only been there 3 hours.
Right.
So that's kind of forcing me into, you know, starting something myself. And it's something I've been really focused on recently. I overthink everything. So I wanted to know exactly what I wanted to do, which didn't really make sense since I can't pinpoint anything with my body. So I don't know why I'm expecting one part of me to be perfect, but it's looking like I'm going to start my own nonprofit and kind of focus on the not caregiver, but almost like a sidekick for helping people navigate through their illnesses.
Yeah, like a liaison that kind of works in many ways.
Yeah, something, because that's the only thing that I really found that's missing. You know, through my health insurance, I was able to get one due to the bone marrow transplant. So they would help me with calling and scheduling my appointments, making sure that things were getting approved and medications were getting filled. And so I want to let other people know that those types of things exist and they're out there. And if there's things you need help with, I promise you there's somebody out there willing to help you with it.
That's awesome. Like how you speak about the brain fog and different things that happen. I would imagine sometimes when that's deep, like getting somebody to do some of those adulting things, especially tied to your medical health, is super important. And because that probably isn't spoken a lot about as a symptom generally, then I think it would be harder if you didn't know that. You know, you see the physical decline, right? But unless you really know how MS kind of works as plaques in the brain and things, like you wouldn't connect those dots. You don't see that on the outside.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, I know these are all the things I have to do.
Yeah.
But then actually doing it is its own battle.
Right. So you mentioned the bone marrow transplant. Did you get a transplant then, or what is that part of I think you said that's part of the study.
Yeah. So I'm in the BEAT MS study. So there is 2 forms of treatment. You know, you get blind drawn for one of 2 options. So they asked me, they're like, "Oh, do you have a preference? Like, you don't get to decide, but do you have a preference?" And I said, "No, whatever. I can go either way. It's fine."
You're like, I'm a test subject.
Yeah. So I think that automatically meant I was going to get the scarier one because she's not.
They're like, "Oh, she can handle this." Yeah.
So chemo and bone marrow transplant. So I forget the word. It's autologous, maybe. I don't know. It just means that they put a port in me. They withdrew white blood cells, basically like dialysis on my cells. And then I go through, so it was 6 days, chemo cocktails, because there's 3 or 4 different medications that they gave me twice a day for those 6 days. And then on the 7th day, they gave me back my blood cells, and due to the chemo, my body is supposed to be like a new house for these blood cells. So they come inside and they don't want to destroy it anymore. They're like, "Oh, this is a nice house. Let's go ahead and keep it."
You're like, "Come on, let's populate this the right way, please." Yeah.
So that's kind of what it was. I hate to say that it was easy because it's not.
Because easy is an understatement beyond control on that one. Yeah.
And
plus what you're dealing with already anyway, right? So there's perspective comparison. Yeah.
And they, so like I knew there was another person who had already done the same course of treatment as me prior. And they said, that person had struggled a little more than I had.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to stay an extended amount of time at the hospital, whereas I got to leave a couple days earlier than expected. And they said it's really a testament to your attitude.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say this. You hate to say that the universe had planned this out for you, but they gave you the personality that then could handle this and like be such a trailblazer that other people could benefit, because they could study attitude and health and like all those things, not just the MS portion, right? So I'm sure the universe was like, "Yeah, this girl's got this." What year was that they did that?
So November was just my 1 year. So November of 2023.
Cool.
Yeah. So is the test, so you've got some actual medicine in the drugs. It's not like somebody's getting placebo, somebody's getting actual treatment.
Yeah, there's no placebo in this study.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're studying the effects of whatever they're administering.
So it's a form of treatment in other countries. It's just not approved by insurances in the United States yet.
Okay.
They need to prove that it works.
A study for
They need a human
approval.
study.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just need the proof that it works out here.
So is it ongoing? Is there still more to come in the study for you?
Yep. It's a 6-year-long study.
Okay.
So there will be 8 people total. I think we're at about half of that because I fly up every 6 months. On every 1 year, I also have an MRI done.
Mm-hmm.
But as of now, no new lesions, no progression.
Amazing.
It's just kind of healing from what's already been lost.
Yeah.
So I should be able to remyelinate at some point. I don't know when. I know there's a documentary, a Selma Blair documentary that
That was very good.
Yeah. And so she actually, that's kind of what I went through, what she was going through. But I wasn't when I watched it, I was bawling instantly.
Of course.
But I wasn't as bad as her. Like she had the shaky voice. I don't have a shaky voice.
Yeah.
But seeing her struggle, I'm like, okay. So then once I found out what the study was and it was the same thing, I'm like, oh, I could do this. She got it.
Yeah.
And I found out recently that she is now walking again and she's going to get back into acting.
Oh, great news.
How do you feel? I mean, obviously you notice differences, but how do you notice differences? I mean, obviously you don't notice decline, but do you notice improvement?
So actually, I do notice decline as well.
Okay.
But I think that has to do with staying in the hospital because they did put me on a bed alarm. And so that meant I wasn't allowed to get up and walk around. I wasn't doing my physical therapy that I get every day. So there was a regression there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm still not even at the baseline that I was at before I underwent the treatment.
How long were you at the hospital then?
I think about 20 days.
Okay, so you were 20 days without daily physical therapy and stuff. So,
and even then that was just staying in the hospital. They also had me in a hotel room for a couple months prior. And then I got to go home, have my daughter's birthday party, and then fly back.
Yeah.
And then even after treatment was done and I was able to leave the hospital, they put me back in a hotel room for 2 weeks because they needed to monitor me until that 28 days post.
Yeah, the period had passed. That's crazy.
So-
well,
so-
now you need to write them a letter and be like, people, do not take away the physical therapy component if you're going to bring these people up here.
I was gonna say that. I mean, any depression?
I mean, seeing myself without hair was weird.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Oh,
I
we're audio only, so for our viewers, I have no hair.
think, I kept the expectations so low for myself that I wasn't giving myself that option. And I think a lot of the medications for MS, since it's the nerves, they also work if you have anxiety or depression. So I think I was getting treatment even if I wasn't trying to.
You're like, bonus.
So
Yeah.
my lows were not that low.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
good. Good.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned you have a daughter. So having children with MS and seeing this change, how did you kind of navigate that? Because you go from like mom with a pain in her knee to the different life that you're having to lead.
Yeah. So there was a couple different times we had to address it. So just when I was newly getting diagnosed, I would say, "Oh, could you give me a cup of water?" And she's like, "I don't want to. Why don't you go get it?" And I'm like, "Well," so I got her into therapy as well. I'm in it too, not currently, but I was in it because this is just a lot on my plate.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And I want to make sure I'm good for myself. I'm good for her. I'm good for everybody. So I had her going as well. And her doctor was like, "I don't think she gets it." And I was like, "Okay, let me see what this means." And I saw in some support group on Facebook, there was a book to teach kids what multiple sclerosis is. And so it was, some days mom wants to crawl around on the ground like a snake. Sometimes she can stand up and walk to the amusement park. Some days she needs a wheelchair. And so we read the book. And at the end, I asked her, I was like, "Well, do you have any questions or anything?" And she's like, "I didn't know it had a name." So
Interesting.
MS wasn't real. My illness wasn't real because it didn't have a name.
And how old was she? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to say exactly, but like area age.
I mean, still single digits.
Okay.
Yeah, still single
Does
digits.
that kind of influences like what we understand or like my own life journey? Obviously having cerebral palsy, I was born with it. So I understood doctors and things, but I mean, obviously my dad changed over my lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, once she got a little bit older and I needed her like assistance for aid, like, "Hey, I need help getting up. My legs aren't working right now. Could you help me stand up so I can get to the chair?" Or, so then that was another, like, we need to take this seriously. I know you're, pre-teen age and you're fun and goofy and silly all the time, but this is still something real that I need help with.
Yeah. Good. So she's on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So, it sounds like you have a background in helping people with your nonprofit work. Do you get to fulfill that part of you now still?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously different roles,
Yeah,
but still there, one of our big things and ongoing is on Thanksgiving morning. We go and volunteer at a church in Riverside, and we like to help on site, and then we go and deliver meals. So on site means we're prepping orders. So it's filling containers. There's a big line of cars ready to go and deliver these meals that we box. So now 1 year we were making the name tags for all the volunteers. This past Thanksgiving, we were the pie girls. So my daughter would run to the room where people were slicing little pies, and I was the big boxes of pies outside. So the drivers would come up with their little sheet saying, oh, I need 4 pies, and then this person only needs 2 slices. So we're like divvying it out to them, like, here you go, making it easy, trying to get the line out. So yeah, it's just shifted to how I can volunteer, but there's no reason that I can't anymore.
Yeah. And you say we is your daughter and your mom, right? Your mom is very active.
She is. But this is myself, my daughter, and her dad.
And her dad.
Yeah. So
Very
we're not
nice.
a couple, but we very much function as a family.
Good for you. Good for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome to modern times. All right.
Yeah.
Make it work.
Yeah.
So what's the future looking like, or what would you like it to look like? Let me ask it that way.
So they asked me that in the study, what I would like. And I said, I would like to be walking by the time my daughter graduates high school. And they saw that as a real possibility.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's
having
awesome.
seen that Selma Blair update that she's up and walking now and acting again. Having known she did something very similar to what I did. I'm a little apprehensive of that.
Afraid to be hopeful, do you think? Or
Yeah, it's that. And then it's a little bit of that, but also I don't know what that's like anymore to just be up and walking,
Gotcha.
and not, I don't know how to be.
Jen's afraid of success.
I think so. I know. Part of it was I had a therapist tell me, that those 5 stages of grief, the book, it was actually written by a woman who was who had cancer. And so she wrote the book for herself. And so it's like her saying goodbye to the life she had. And I've been so afraid to say goodbye to the life I had because that's supposed to be my end too. So I'm afraid to say goodbye if that's what I want. I don't want my nerves, you want to
say see you later, not goodbye? This is just see you later.
Yeah. I don't want my brain to hear me say, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And then it decide to not work anymore because I said it.
Yeah. It's not uncommon, first of all, and it's something that, I'm going to be 70 this year. So it's something you really deal with at this age, but you're dealing with it, much earlier than you should have to do it. But that's what keeps people back from making those transitions that may help them, for me, I had to go through that and kind of mourn the loss of me that walked, and over the years I transitioned into a wheelchair. And one of the big things that I tell people that really helped me is at some point, the wheelchair became the place that I had agility again, that I had lost from walking, because it slowly deteriorated, and I just started using the chair more and more and more. I was kind of relating to some of the things you were saying, those early symptoms that you noticed, and I noticed things and misdiagnosed them, if you will, in myself. Like when I swang through on my crutches, I would start to stumble and I'd start to my feet would drag on the ground. And I thought that my crutches somehow had gotten shorter. So I literally went to a welder and had him add a 1/2 inch, but I still did it. And, over time, then I realized it's my shoulders can't hold me up high enough to swing through that I don't hit the ground. In hindsight, I mean, this probably was 10 years later as I look back and thought, that's what that was. That was some of the early signs that I didn't. And, then there were others. But you get to that point where, it's just too hard to walk. And
I mean, we talk about that all the time, Doug, because I'm kind of in that position that before I was like, so with my CP, I'm going to be 46. And probably like this year of being 45, I've like rapidly declined enough that I don't go out without a walker. I'm, got my chair because I know I'm going to need it more than just like Disneyland and longer things. And it is that whole mourning process of like, wait, even if I walked like a crazy person, like I could still walk and motor myself and whatever. And now I'm kind of like you, I get scared of like, if I don't have my walker, what if I fall in the grocery store? What if I, do I even want to go get like my toes done? Because what if something happens? Like I never used to think of that. When you're young, you're just like, whatever. Yeah. And you just go. You're like, if I fall, I'll get up and people will laugh and we'll take a bow and move on. Now I'm like, oh my God, what if I fall?
Right.
Yeah. And it's a process, you'll come to it when, you're ready, but it's just, you have to have all these experiences along the way. Something tells me though, you'll be fine. You seem like you have a strong will.
I try. Definitely trying.
Very nice. So what's the future look like as far as your MS and helping in that community? Sound like you're going to be an advocate for them. Yeah. Definitely.
We met going to the possibilities in Loma Linda, and I see real value there. I love that it's not just one diagnosis.
Yeah.
That I could see the perspective from other people in other ways. I just think there's real value there.
Yeah.
And, I've done the MS only support groups and it doesn't feel quite right. And I think that's, like I mentioned, you could have a million different symptoms. So there's people there who walk and are, seemingly having no symptoms, but I'm sure they have them.
Yeah.
And then there's others who need like a power chair and nonverbal. And there's people who were diagnosed young. It just feels harder trying to relate when we all have the same diagnosis, when it looks so different, that it's almost easier to be in a place like Possibilities where everybody has something different and I'm not trying to compare myself.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting to hear.
We're waiting for a symptom.
Well, very good. Well, thank you. We've met a couple of times at the Possibilities Mixer, and I have some other things in store for you too. Won't be the last time we talk to Jen. And this was at the Possibilities Mixer 2-3 months ago when some of the people there that have caregivers started to talk, and it just kind of, I don't know what's spawned it, but all of a sudden, was it you? Yeah, and this discussion starts, and everybody was comparing notes about, their relationships with their caregivers and all those different things. And I thought, well, that might make a great topic, because I was already thinking of doing something topic based, and I thought this would be a good one. I think, because I could just tell how passionate everybody was about it. So yeah, that's coming up, and I'm working on that, and again, getting the right people together. I'd like to have somebody from IHSS there for that perspective, from the people that administer that, and maybe it could be a vehicle that you guys could communicate with them on where there might be some room for improvement. So yeah, I'd like to have that discussion. So anything else that you have for us or want to share that we didn't ask about?
Not really. If you want to look up the study, it's BEAT, BEAT-MS.org. So that's the study that I'm in. I go through Stanford, but there's a few other colleges out there doing it as well. I know there's one in Oregon. I know Duke is doing it as well. But they're all going to be 6-year-long studies.
So do you have to be recommended by your doctor and referred?
I believe so.
And if they him and holler, stay at them.
Yeah.
Right?
I also, I know I can refer people because I'm in it.
Oh, okay.
So if anybody's interested, there were a couple, qualifying things that needed to happen. So a couple medications you need to have tried and failed.
Gotcha.
The biggest one for me physically was being able to walk a football field.
Yeah.
So that's why I said that's how I know I'm not back at my baseline, because the idea of walking a football field seems very daunting.
Yeah. Yeah. So how about we do this? If somebody is listening and wants to get more information about it, just email us and we'll get you guys together. All right.
Awesome.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate you taking time to come and talk with us today, and looking forward to talking again in the future on another subject.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug.
Right.
Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Jen.
Each week on Walk and Roll Live, we share honest and open stories of people living with a disability.
We went after Manuel Noriega. So what happened is, my whole platoon was in front of the hangar. And then, a firefight started, and pretty much just about everybody in my platoon was shot. And that was the end, the end of one chapter and beginning of another. I was shot twice, one on my back and one on my leg, and I got to the hospital. And you still don't think, this is permanent. But eventually it kind of dawns on you, it dawned on me that this is for the long haul. It's not something that's going to be fixed, anytime soon.
Join us weekly for another powerful episode. Walk and Roll Live, wherever you get your podcasts. Life Limitless. Subscribe now.
Story shared in every heart. Healing starts to play its part. In this journey we unite, shining with the glowing light. Insight found in every voice. Together we make our choice. Strength and wisdom grow within. This is where our tales begin. Walking all life, we stand so tall. Breaking barriers, breaking walls.
This is an awesome story that we got to listen to today. Obviously, it's something that's close to my heart, and I hope that listeners have learned a lot. I'm super excited to hear all about her study and watch what happens in the future.
Yeah,
like I
sounds
told
like
her,
that.
we'll be cheering for the progression, even if it's not to the pinnacle of what she hopes. I hope she continues to improve, and
Sounds like a good start.
yeah,
Right.
I think so. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
So do you have any events coming up that you know about that you want to tout?
No,
No? Okay.
Doug is a hermit. I mean, I'm a hermit. Doug is not a hermit.
Doug is not a hermit. Nope.
Doug is not a hermit. Doug has been elected to do all social activities that I might do in my life. So
But I got to ask. I got to be polite. At least ask.
I know. You are very polite, but no. I mean, if it stays as cold as it is, I literally am going to be a polar bear.
Oh,
And
yeah.
be gone
Yeah.
for a while.
I at least have sunshine. It's on the cooler side, but at least it's sunshine. Yeah. I mean,
It's
I
17
wouldn't be out
degrees
in-
right now.
Yeah. I wouldn't be out
17.
in snow or
No,
anything.
thank
either.
you.
No.
How
So-
about you?
so-
I'm sure you have a lot coming up.
There are a few things now that, the new year has started and everybody kind of took a pause and now we're back to doing whatever. But Triumph Foundation has a bunch of things, and I won't, get into it here and list them all, but I know they've got a few events. We went to the Adaptive Sports Festival that they had in Santa Clarita last year. It's where we met Andrew Skinner and had him on as a guest and all of that. So that's coming up again. I want to say April. There's some events in March. I don't know if it's happened yet. There was an Adaptive Sports Festival in Burbank. They had their first one last year, and that's coming up again soon. But you can look on our website, look at Triumph Foundation, look for the calendar, and you can find all those events. Rolling Start is having another wheelchair group. I went to the one last week. They have two locations, San Bernardino and Hesperia. And so the one in Hesperia was last week. They're starting one. This will be the first time in San Bernardino, and that is this Friday at 1 p.m. Oh, no, I lied. Thursday. That is this Thursday at 1 p.m. And it's hybrid. You can come to the office or you can go online. If you go to rollingstart.com through Walk and Roll Live, if that's easier for you, if you can remember that, and go to the calendar, you can register and they will send you a link for the Zoom call. And possibilities. They've got the mixer every week, and then they've got stretching things and They have all kinds of things that they do with possibilities. So again, go to our website, look on resources, look for team possibilities, and that'll click you through to their website, and you can find the calendar and find all the good stuff that's going on. So, and if you have something, please let us know, and we'll put it on our resource page. We'll talk about it here and help you get the word out. How's that?
Awesome. That's very good.
And
We're
another
happy to do that.
interesting guest next week. I believe we're going to have next week. I've already kind of touched. We just haven't done the final, scheduling. But Randy Plummer, who was a wonderful musician that was at the Possibilities annual dinner in December, and so I invited him to come on. He's got like long COVID symptoms that he's dealing with. So he's, we can talk to him and get the actual details, but he walks with crutches now. So he's, paralyzed to a certain degree. I don't think he's got braces, but, we'll find out about how this all happened and how it's going now and all of that. So that'll be next week here on Walk and Roll Live.
Awesome. I'll be here.
All
Hope
right.
you are too.
You'll be here?
Yeah, I'll be here.
All right.
How about you?
I'll
Doug
be
and
here.
I will be here waiting for you
That's right.
to get here and listen to us.
All right. Have a good week. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Doug Vincent, with Addie Rich from the Agyar Professional Training Studio. This has been Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories, Life Limitless.